Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and tonight we're returning to yet another episode of Strategic Command World War I. It is May of 1915, and the war on the Eastern Front is kind of in an interesting stage. We just recently finished the destruction of two German corps and a German detachment near Memel in eastern Prussia, and so we've taken Memel and Tilsit. We've also taken Gumden, so Eastern Prussia is in some serious trouble. Königsberg is being threatened, although it's highly unlikely we'll be able to actually take it with the 3 German corps and 2 detachments that the Germans have put in our way to trying to take that. But we might have a chance to destroy the 1st German Reserve Corps and the Ruhr Landstrom detachment near Johannesburg, near the Missourian lakes. We're taking a little bit of a gamble to try and cut them off with sort of this long line of infantry. And if the Germans shift forces there, they almost uncertainly, or almost undoubtedly, can break through and kind of destroy these units. But if they're as lackadaisical in their effort to liberate these German units as they were with Tilsit and Memel, we might have a chance to destroy a couple more German units at relatively light losses for our Russian troops. The real German threat seems to be appearing in Poland, where the Germans have been making several attacks on units near Warsaw. They have destroyed a couple of Russian corps. They've also badly bloodied a few others. The real threat seems to be in the open ground south of Ivangrad, where the Germans have had some success in sort of inflicting heavy casualties on us. Now, we have managed to nearly destroy an Austro-Hungarian corps, which was attacking in that direction this turn, so hopefully they don't swap it out and they just sort of replace its losses. And then I'm assuming they may continue the direct assault from west to east against Warsaw, sort of on this front line. We're in a little bit better defensive position here, I think, but I'm not really sure on that. The Germans have developed level 2 trenches. We have not yet, so that gives them a much bigger advantage on the defensive, but the Austro-Hungarians haven't. On that note, Austria-Hungary is still holding strong near Przemysl and Tarnow and Krakow, thanks in large part to serious reinforcements received from the Germans here. You can see the majority of the troops in the Przemysl region are actually Germans. But we have kind of broken through in the south near some of these mountain passes to try and drive in toward Klausburg, drive in toward Debrecen. We've advanced some cavalry as far south as Hammerstadt and may swing east toward Kronstadt in the hope that it'll bring Romania in the war, into the war. That would really be nice because right now this advance has no rail line supporting it. It's just a couple of bad roads through the mountains. So our supply situation as we advance toward Grosswarden and Debrecen is going to get pretty bad pretty quickly. But with that being said, the hope is obviously that the enemy pulls back and sort of tries to find a new defensive line. I don't think they'll abandon Przemysl, but you never know. And we'll see kind of how that plays out. Bonakak 1234, thank you very much for the resub. That's 4 months now. Appreciate the support. But yeah, if we can bring Romania into the war, then we'll have this rail line in from Kronstadt to Hammerstadt, which should sort of support our advance if we swing south to perhaps even relieve some pressure on the Serbian front. We've seen the Austro-Hungarians pull troops away from nearly breaking through the Serbian line to pulling some troops back further west. We actually just destroyed an Austro-Hungarian corps in front of Belgrade. And you can see here we almost destroyed a second corps, specifically the third corps southwest of Belgrade this turn. And so overall here on the Serbian front, it feels like things are holding together. Although again, if Bulgaria were to get involved, that would put us in a real tough spot. If we take a look at the diplomacy situation right now, Bulgaria is at 63% to the Central Powers. Meanwhile, Romania is actually 83% toward the Entente. So they're actually closer to coming in on our side than otherwise would be thought. Now, if Romania comes in, they also will potentially pose a nice counter to Bulgaria should they get involved. But if Bulgaria gets involved, they're in the rear of the Serbians. Also, the other major problem with Bulgaria getting involved is that they would give a direct rail line to the Ottomans so that they could flood the Ottoman troops forward and get them into Europe. They have 40 units in the Ottoman Empire, so that would, if they could just rail these troops in, first knock out Serbia, then rail these troops to the Eastern Front, that would change things real quick. The one positive for us on this sort of general spiel is that we've got 29% of the Austro-Hungarian morale is down to 29%. So, the lower that gets, if that gets down to 0, I believe you start getting like surrender checks. So we could potentially trigger the fall of Austria-Hungary. The AI decided to give Italy their demands in Austria-Hungary, so that seems a little bit weird of a trigger for the Austro-Hungarians to agree to. That really kind of crippled their morale. They lost like 30 national morale points, and the Italians haven't even shown a sign yet that they're coming to war on the side of the Entente, or on the Central Powers, although we have put 2 French corps, full-strength French corps, along the border with Italy, just in case. Meanwhile, on the Western Front, the Germans continue to press, but we've got a reasonably strong defensive line. The Germans, I think, are starting to get a more well-rounded force with some artillery and air units to support. So they are seeing a little bit more success on their attacks, but we've got a full line of troops fully built up and dug in at the moment in the summer of 1915. And then we've also sort of started assembling a squadron here in the North Sea to potentially see if we can't do some damage to the German fleet near Wilhelmshaven, at least whatever we can find of it, because it looks like a large amount of the German fleet has actually deployed against the Russians here. We can see we almost sank the König Albert dreadnought here in the Gulf of Finland, but they also nearly sank our armored cruiser Palada, the pre-dreadnought battleship Peter Veliski, and they badly battered the dreadnought Gangnut, the Ganut. All of these ships are in port with the exception of the armored cruiser Palada, but I've tried to lay some mines in sort of defense. We probably will lose the destroyer Vindy, but I'm hoping that these minefields make it more difficult for them to get at this one exposed armored cruiser so we can retreat it next turn. Also, I threw the destroyer in front to eat up a little bit of their attacks, so we'll see. I assume they're going to try and pull this dreadnought back to repair it. Probably not the Rhineland. She didn't take too much damage, but I would assume they'll pull back the König Albert. But if they do run it into mines, I wouldn't be disappointed at the idea of destroying a German dreadnought. Anyway, that's the situation right now. It's May of 1915. We're about to end our turn, and we're going to move into June of 1915 and see how things play out for us in the next AI turn. Okay, so the first units of Kitchener's new army deploy for service. So we're getting a bunch new British units. The French Foreign Legion deploys for battle. Oh, I forgot to talk about the Egyptian front, where we just destroyed an Ottoman corps in the Sinai. Central Powers raiders are disrupting Canada-UK convoys. Meanwhile, we're continuing to blockade imports to Germany with our navy. Scientists report progress in infantry warfare for the Russians. That's actually very good news. If we want to get that up to 1 as soon as possible, because presumably the Germans are going to get upgraded soon too. But having that will be absolutely critical to making sure we don't get overrun. Okay, all right, so some Austro-Hungarian subs just torpedoed some of our French warships in the Adriatic. Some strategic redeployments from some different units in these areas. It looks like they are moving troops south toward Debrecen, so that's good. I mean, it kind of blocks our drive, but it also lessens the number of units around Przemysl. Also, they did reinforce that Austro-Hungarian unit sort of in that plain of Poland in the south there, so that's good. They reinforced this detachment north of the Missourian Lakes, which means it can't move or attack. But it'll be interesting to see if they bring troops against this line here near the Missourian Lakes. The Germans just have so many units. It does seem like perhaps the German fleet is pulling back from the Gulf of Finland, where they did try to advance a little bit. The Russian fleet was pretty badly shot up, but we gave a pretty good account of ourselves as well, I think. Meanwhile, German artillery bombarding some French troops here. Also some Serbian troops getting hit by artillery. They're attacking the fortification to the west of Warsaw to absolutely no effect there. Meanwhile, they're attacking our infantry in the plains southwest of Warsaw, doing some damage here. We did have some defensive artillery, which did help. Also some defensive artillery here in France, where they're attacking one of our French units here, east of Paris. So casualties being taken all around. Alright, German counterattack near Debrecen. Also some Austro-Hungarian attacks there. The interesting thing here is the Austrians are now attacking our... Alright, they destroyed our detachment there near Ragusa, which was kind of helping to choke the supplies a little bit. Meanwhile, some Ottoman attacks on the Caucasus with some of their own garrisons or detachments not really going all that well for them. Some reinforcements here. Looks like largely ineffectual attacks. A couple of units on the Eastern Front were pretty badly battered, but nothing devastatingly so. I keep forgetting about the damn rebels in Morocco. I'm guessing that'll be a national morale hit if I don't deal with them eventually. I also didn't really do anything about our attempt to encircle the troops near Missourian lakes. They continue to seem to focus their effort on the Warsaw front, which frankly I'm okay with, if that's what they're going to do. It'll be interesting to see if the AI is pouring like money into trying to bring Bulgaria into the war. Oh, just as I say that, diplomatic success in Bulgaria swings them 6% toward the Central Powers. I think that puts them at like 69%, but we'll have to take a look and see where they're at. They're not preparing for war yet, so they're not in on the conflict quite yet. Coastal batteries are modern lake in the sense that if you try to attack warships in port, you're going to get pretty bloodily repulsed in almost all cases. All right, so the Belgrade detachment was destroyed in the Serbian front. Let's take a look. All right, so British destroyer, French fighter, and Russian submarine arrived this turn. What about diplomacy? What does it say here? So Bulgaria's at 69% toward the Central Powers. We might want to consider investing to try and slow that. So there's a detachment here. I do want to reinforce these guys. Try and destroy this Austro-Hungarian detachment here. I think pull these guys back. Put this detachment in. Got him. Alright, entrench those troops. Entrench these troops. Alright, so we're entrenching troops in front of the capital of Montenegro. We'll reinforce these Serbian troops. There's a little bit of a weak spot near Uzis, as you can see there, with a detachment in place. But I'm going to spend the rest of sort of my Serbian turn here reinforcing these troops. Belgrade itself was only held by an Austro-Hungarian detachment, but we did just destroy another Austro-Hungarian detachment of our own. So they're down to 28 total units. I think that's a slight tick up of where they were just a few turns ago. Meanwhile, so that's sort of the Serbian front. Let's move to Kronstadt. Take that city. That should give us... I mean, I would think, again, that Romania might be enticed to start getting involved here. Reinforce these troops up to full strength. Alright, can we bombard these guys? I have one shell, so I feel like using it on the defense is probably smarter. Let's go 1 to 4. Alright, so we just destroyed that Austro-Hungarian corps. So it should continue to tick their morale. They're down to 27%. Alright, let's... God, a lot of these troops are... They really need a break. Alright, let's try and bomb these guys. I'm wondering if it'll give us a better attack. No, apparently not. I was thinking maybe it would give him some recon, but... Alright, let's go 1 to 2. Swap these troops out. Okay, swap those troops. And so we'll put an 8 unit in there. Also swap these guys here to put a 7 unit into a slightly more vulnerable position. And so we just destroyed a German corps to the east of Sambor. German national morale's in pretty good shape at 80. What's their overall strength at? 69, so they continue to kind of stay around the same strength. Alright, these guys are almost dead, so we're going to pull them back. Okay. Advance these troops here. How's their supply? Not great. Could be worse. German supply is better than ours. I don't have any rail, which is the problem. If I can take Klausenberg, I don't know if rail supply flows through from Romania or not. It might actually. Looks like that might be a slight improvement in supply. If we could take Klausberg, that would be great. Alright, reinforce these troops that are getting hit. Yeah, 3.6 Rodkin. Not great, not terrible. Okay. Swing these troops east to complete the encirclement at the Missourian Lakes. Advance these troops across the river, maybe? I don't think it's likely they're going to rush east. I mean, they could. It's not terribly likely. So we've got 150. Is there anything we want to research or perhaps build for the Russians? We're already researching infantry weapons. Industrial technologies, researching production, logistics, trench warfare. I really think I want to tick up the trench warfare a little bit. Need to accelerate that. Perhaps twice. Getting into a spot where the Germans can't easily get at us, I think, is important for the Russians, so we'll spend the rest of their money on that. And we'll let the troops at Missourian Lakes sort of starve for another turn. Although our own troop supply situation isn't great. It's actually going to get a little bit better this turn, though. Are there any headquarters supporting these guys? There are, so let's advance this guy to Gundam. And that'll actually get these guys up to 7, which is a pretty good supply level. Kind of think cross the river there and go after the German artillery. Should lessen the effectiveness of any of their attacks. These guys are dug in. They are. I'd love to attack these austro-hungarian troops, but that'll probably weaken me too much in the direct line of fire from the Germans, so we'll hold off there. Austro-Hungarian morale's at 27%. We'll across the river there and attack their headquarters. Do you have any warships I can go after? A German sub. Alright, these guys should be impacted via supply. We're going to pull this armored cruiser back. Their destroyers in port. So we're going to pull all these guys a little bit further back to the mouth of the Adriatic. These guys need to pull back to Malta, perhaps, to resupply. Okay. Meanwhile, on the Ottoman front, it doesn't look like the Ottomans sent any troops into the Sinai here. If I send a detachment this far east. Where are their damn troops? You'd think they'd be moving against us somewhere. I don't know if I want to... Alright, so we can see they've got a corps at Beersheba, at Aqaba, a detachment at Jerusalem. So let's actually just advance these guys back into these trenches to sort of guard Egypt. I don't really want to launch an invasion of Palestine quite yet. I need more troops in Kuwait, really. I don't know that I want to reinforce those guys, that artillery, quite yet. Alright, so took the Sinai, but I'm probably going to pull back. Took Gaza, but I don't intend to stay there. How much transports? 20? I'm still surprised the Germans haven't sent troops down to the Serbian front to try and solidify things there. Meanwhile, the Foreign Legion for France has arrived in the south, so I think the intent with them is just going to be sort of hold the line against Italy, because I really do think Italy's going to come into the war sooner rather than later. Reinforce these French troops. And... you know, let's just pull these guys back and put some new troops in there. The question is, do I want to attack these guys? They're a little bit exposed. These guys would be the most in danger. They're not dug in at all. Get it 2 to 3 there, and I could probably swap in a bunch of 10 units there. Or go for their artillery back here, which again is also exposed. But I actually think let's use this turn of inactivity on the Western Front for the French to purchase some new units, because we haven't... First off, let's place these new fighters. So we haven't used them yet. And then let's go ahead and... No, not that. Let's purchase some new units. The French have 293 money right now. We don't really have to spend it on anything. We've got a few units that are a little bit weak, but they're all not on the front line. So 293, what does that let us do with our money? We're already investing in infantry weapons, command and control, and infantry warfare. We could work on tanks. So let's do a little bit on tanks. Let's do... I don't know if mobility is what we want. Maybe spying and intelligence. That's probably a good thing to invest in. And then maybe another chit into trench warfare to try and get that to speed up. You know what? Let's just go all in on research this turn. We're going to put 2 chits into trench warfare. Especially since I'm kind of on the defensive in a lot of these places. And then the British have 174. I'm going to spend a little bit of that money to bring additional troops to the front. But we, like, right now we've got a fair amount of units. Let's pull these guys back to Paris. Like, 2 layers of 10 almost along the whole line. So we've got 148. What about the British research-wise? Probably infantry warfare is a need there. And then for the 40 that we have remaining, we can put that into... Could go fighter development. ASW we're already putting 2 into. I mean, we do have fighters. So keeping the skies clear for us is probably worth it. So pretty good amount of money being researched on this turn as well. I don't have the money for anti-sub. Okay. Naval mines. Alright, so we made contact with an enemy destroyer. I think that's a destroyer, right? Yeah. We're going to swing our warships down to Dodger Bank. I don't want to overextend ourselves and rush headlong into something, especially since I've only detected one enemy destroyer. So we're going to send our ships south here so that we're within striking distance of Heligoland Bight, but we're not going to go for it quite yet. I guess I can these guys reach if they could. So if I send these guys down here. So all we see is that one enemy destroyer. There's got to be more warships than that. But I'll finish off the enemy destroyer here. Get a little bit of national morale bonus. Shift our other warships south a little bit to get behind these light ships. Send that guy to port. Run back behind them. I mean, we know the enemy has a lot of subs. Obviously, the German fleet in this era is also large. I just don't know where it's at. So I don't want to necessarily invite like a full-on battle at the moment. But I'd be curious if there's any easy pickings in around Cuxhaven or Wilhelmshaven. Most of our heavy ships are down south here. Also get this French armored cruiser into the channel. Okay. America invested in industrial technology last turn. Alright, so we're going to have 3 French corps on the Italian border. On the Italian border. Okay. So, we'll see if the Ottomans rush against us in the Sinai. The one other place we still kind of have to check out a little bit here is the Caucasus front. Okay, these guys can't entrench, so we'll... Alright, let's pull... Swing some troops around here. All right, so we're dug in all along the front here on the Ottoman border. Be great if we could take like Izirium or Trebizond or something to sort of give the Ottoman's a little bit of a bloody nose. Let's do this. Let's see if we can't... Alright, so we detected the enemy fleet. Looks like there's the battle cruiser, which is the Guben, and then a light cruiser here. I'm going to put my sub here to, if they try and advance into the Black Sea, we'll trip them up, hopefully. We do have a new Russian unit. It's a sub. We can deploy that to the Gulf of Finland. We'll pull this armored cruiser back into port. I'd love to send my sub out to sort of scout out the Baltic a little bit. See if we can't get eyes on the main German fleet. Had my Russian bombers try and engage enemy fighters here. Didn't accomplish a whole lot other than getting intercepted by German aircraft. I wonder if they'll attack this core. They can't entrench, though. So these guys could definitely get destroyed if these Germans all swing south on them. Alright. So, we'll see what they do here as we're moving firmly into the summer campaigning season. So we've got a pretty weak force in front of Lemberg. A very beat-up force if the AI tried to press there. But my hope is that the threat to the forces in the south near Debrecen prevents them from doing so. I'm also really hoping that the seizure of Kronstadt brings Romania closer to war on our side. I'm controlling the Allied powers, yes. Man-made monster. Alright. So, I wonder if it would be worth trying to land some troops near Hamburg. Like land them at Cuxhaven and try and advance on Hamburg. Just to freak him out. The problem is whoever lands is 100% going to die. Alright, we'll deploy this new destroyer in the south here near London. Let's fly our blimp across the way. Alright. That's going to do it for the June 5th turn. Let's move ahead to the next turn and see what July has in store for us. I forgot about the rebels in Morocco again. Lol. Central Powers, meanwhile, continue to raid our Russian convoys and UK convoys, so that's going to put a crimp in our income. But, of course, we're raiding their own forces, and we're developing ASW tech, so that should help us get a little bit more aggressive against their subs. Looks like we lost 25%, so 9 IPs, or MPPs of the Canadian income, and, wow, 17 of the UK to USSR convoys. Yeah. Is it though, Firestorm? The British deployed like 250,000 troops in German East Africa to deal with the guerrilla war there, didn't they? Okay, so some new German cavalry is deploying near Premzel. Looks like. Okay. Spinning beach ball of death. Waiting to see what the AI is doing here. AI is thinking. It says fleet moving. Hey, the Germans are back near the Gulf of Riga again. And the Austro-Hungarians have brought their dreadnought out of Pola. Interesting. I don't think I have the strength to take them on. Most of my fleet in the Adriatic is kind of beat up. Alright, so presumably the Germans are going to attack here in the south, also perhaps against a couple of these different units. Usually where the enemy air units recon is where they're going to attack. At least that's my perception. Well, they're going to destroy that frontline French unit there. They destroyed the French unit in Lille. They're going to attack these guys out of Lutz. German cavalry retakes Lille, but they get a bloody nose from the British second line. Attack on the detachment near Uzis. Meanwhile, the Austro-Hungarian Corps pulls out of Ragusa, is replaced by a detachment there, and drive back the Montenegrin detachment. Some reinforcement going on. That German cavalry is asking to die, by the way. Keeping a level 4 health unit on the front line that isn't, I imagine, is not super well dug in because they moved on the same turn. I have no, I mean, I don't know how many troops I have in Morocco. I don't know what a detachment equals. 25,000? Is it a division? It's less than a corps, presumably. So well less than 250,000. All right, so the AI is reinforcing a bunch of units. Not a very aggressive turn by the AI. More new British units are deploying. Finally, that investment we made in the new Kitchener Armory is working. Foreign Minister reports diplomatic success in the Netherlands, 18% to the Central Powers. Well, that would be bullshit if Holland joined the Germans. That seems highly improbable given what happened to Belgium. But I think one of the major things is if you're the Allies, you can lean on Holland to cut off food exports to the Germans, which helps them resist the blockade. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of Strategic Command World War I. This is episode number 8 of my series, and it's a pretty interesting conflict so far. I'd say so far things are going pretty well for us. We're making success in Austria on the southern flank, although the situation in eastern Prussia is quite less clear, and so it'll be interesting to see how things unfold in the coming months. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we will pick this up next time. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.